Disciplined Agile into the future. Today's topic of All Things Disciplined Agile. I'm Joshua Barnes, and today I'm joined by Scott Ambler, Mark Lines, and Curtis Hibbs. Scott and Mark being the co-creators of Disciplined Agile, and hopefully if you've been watching the past couple of live streams, you'll be familiar with Curtis, who is an Agile thought leader at PMI and one of the DA team members. So if each one of you, starting with Scott, if you'd like to just do a little intro.
Yeah, so as you heard, along with Mark, I'm one of the co-creators of the Disciplined Agile Toolkit, also the thought leader behind the Agile modeling and Agile data methods, enterprise unified process, and a few other things. So I've spent most of my career helping people to learn how to improve their ways of working.
Mark?
And I'm Mark, and I echo Scott's comments. Together we created Disciplined Agile. One of the things, we've written 4 books and there are many languages now, but one thing I should say is that we didn't just write books, we actually did this with clients around the world. So we learned by doing, and the feedback helped us to evolve DA over time. So anyway, we're really excited about the future of DA and participating in the call.
And I'm Curtis Hibbs, and I'm on the DA team in PMI. I'm basically a really long-term consultant who specialized in improving ways of working, although we didn't call it that, back in the beginning. But very, very much into lean and agile practices as they developed over the last couple decades, and basically came to DA because it's a godsend to consultants.
And thanks everyone for joining us, and also for those of you that already have posted in the comments as far as where you're at. So anyone who hasn't posted, go ahead and do that. It's great to see some familiar faces and some new ones. So what we thought we would do is we did have a lot of questions that were sent prior to this live stream, and what we tried to do is distill them down, and we've got 3 of them that we're going to start off with, and these 3 actually are tied into some of what we were going to be talking about today anyway. So the first question, and there were a lot that came through as far as, Mark and Scott, what are you guys doing since you left PMI?
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, sure. So I'm doing several things. I guess the big news is I went back to school for a master's in artificial intelligence. So I've been, it's a part-time 2-year effort. So I'm having a lot of fun doing that. I've been doing a little bit of remote coaching in, around data, ways of working. And I'm putting the finishing touches on a Disciplined Agile data warehousing business intelligence workshop. So that'll be a lot of interesting fun for a few people, I think, at some point.
Excellent.
And myself, I've just been actually taking some time off. I learned to fly, which is used up a lot of time and money, and that was great. Real fulfillment of a personal dream, and keep quite active, golfing and curling and bowling and hiking and all kinds of things. But actively watching what's going on, and really here to help participate and help PMI take DA to the next level, frankly.
Excellent. Okay, so the next question we've got is, so in the last 2 streams, right, Curtis and I have talked about the new DA for Teams workshop, and that there is a bit of a business-to-business focus where we're trying to look at enabling entire teams. So a couple of the questions that came through were, well, you guys ran a consulting practice prior to PMI's acquisition of Disciplined Agile, which just happened to be focused on DA. What can you share about this new sort of focus in addition to everything else that's been going on with DA?
I could start with that one, since I kind of held up headed up the consulting side of our business. We've always said that teams can only achieve their true potential if they have knowledge. It's not enough to have a very great scrum master if the team isn't aware of how to improve themselves. This is a team sport, it's not an individual sport. So the first thing, if we were asked to come in and do a transformation or agile adoption, one of the first things we would assist upon is making sure that people get some education, and it goes far beyond a basic Scrum course. And we would insist that all members of the teams be trained, not just even if the Scrum Masters or team leads have been doing Agile for years and years, that's not enough. All teams need to understand what their options are. How can you have a really good retrospective discussion on ways to improve if you don't understand what ways of working are available? That was kind of job one for us, is to give everybody a baseline of Agile and traditional basics so that they can have more productive retrospectives on their journey to improvement. So we, I think this dovetails into something we want to talk about today is PMI is sort of going back to the way we used to do things, which is to really encourage just of the leads. So that's the first thing we would do is give them DA training for teams. And then we would stick around and provide coaching. And typically, an engagement that I would work on, for instance, I would go in the morning and we would have a Scrum of Scrums kind of thing with all the team leads, sometimes 20 plus teams. And we would get together and decide which teams need our help. And then it's basically a daily coordination meeting. And that would determine how we would spend. Different teams would be struggling with different things. So really to sum it up is that we started with baseline training for everybody. And then we stuck around for months, sometimes years, moving from teams. And also, by the way, coaching executives and middle management, not just the teams. And that's really how the whole organization improves its capability and maturity. And to be back to the B2B message, is this is a huge opportunity for consulting companies. So you make money doing training, but you can also, that will then lead into potentially a very fulfilling engagement with your customers to help them improve on the consulting services side of the business. Scott, anything you want to add?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the key things with putting, an entire team through training at once together as a team is everybody gets to see they get to hear the same message. They get to see how it all fits together, and they can coherently discuss what they actually face, right? So one of the challenges when you only send one person through, or this person gets that training and that person gets that training and so on, is they get differing messages, and whenever you get specialized training, invariably, part of that message of the specialized training is that specialty is the center of the universe and the most important thing, and rah. And it's simply not true, because just down the hall, somebody else is getting other specialty training in a different specialty, and they are also apparently the center of the universe as well, and they're also the most important thing. So you really need to have this overall view, and you need to see the trade-offs and discuss the trade-offs that you're going to be making, and understand the implications of what it really means to work together. And I really can't stress enough, like, looking at the full picture. It's not just about like the Scrum ceremonies or whatever else you're hearing in this other training. It's like, how do you actually make it work in practice, not in theory, in practice, in your environment? And those are the discussions you need to have together as a team. So it was absolutely, that sort of training was absolutely invaluable. And then of course coaching and mentoring after the fact too.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what is kind of been designed into the new DA for Teams workshop, and we'll get into that a little bit more with some other topics that we'll discuss. But yeah, I mean, focusing on the team, focusing on their context, having them all together, talking about the trade-offs, the ordering of when they might adopt something versus when it makes the most sense, and so forth. So, Curtis, anything else you want to add into that?
I would just say that people learn best when they're working on things that are relevant to them. So if a whole team is there and they're working on their own issues that they're actually facing, they're going to get the most out of that.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. What was our next question? Our next question is PMI still investing in DA? And I'll start off with a little bit on that from my perception. And it's, yeah, absolutely. And there was a period, and again, in the last two live streams, Curtis and I kind of touched on this a little bit, where nothing new was coming out. There wasn't a lot of communication, but recently, right, it's become more apparent of the investment, or the continued investment in DA. Again, a new workshop. Lots of changes, both now and coming in the DA browser. We're going to be talking about that as one of our topics in just a few moments. And then lots of other things. There was a significant presence at the Agile Alliance conference. There's going to be another significant presence at PMI's Global Summit conference, which is coming up at the end of October. So there's quite a bit that is now starting to be more apparent from an investment standpoint, and more to come. Oh,
Yeah.
One last thing before Curtis, before you mention that, I will say
Okay.
there's a little bit so if you stick around to the end of the live stream, I'll also be announcing something for next week that we'll be able to see a lot more clearly how some real in-depth questions can be answered from a DA investment perspective. So Curtis, please go ahead.
Well, I was just going to mention, along the lines of PMI's investment in DA, is one of the major things that DA has to offer is DA as a knowledge base, and a curated set of known practices. And we all know this is a moving target, right? There's new things come along all the time, and even the stuff that's in the DA knowledge base already, there are places that need updates and improvements. So we're beginning to post volunteer opportunities on PMI's volunteer page, or I don't know what you call it. Anyway, so anybody who's interested in contributing to the knowledge base, please go sign up on the volunteer page. I mean, right now we're looking for DevOps experts. We'll be posting more opportunities going forward.
Yeah, and I'll post a link to that in the chat after the stream. There's a message that Curtis that you made in the Disciplined Agile LinkedIn group. So I'll post a link to that.
I could maybe add a little perspective from, I guess I'm an outsider now, but kind of not. If people don't know, before Scott and I left PMI, I headed up DA, the brand. And one of the last things I was working on before I left was actually rebooting DA and reinvigorating it and actually taking it back to its roots. Like a lot of people, the feedback we got was DA was so successful pre-PMI. It's one of the reasons why PMI was interested in it. And we kind of lost our mojo. And so I was working with your product manager, Christy Muller, on not really a new strategy, sort of getting back to our roots and what caused us success in the past. And then, when we left, there was a change in leadership at PMI. And I'm not making excuses, but it's just a fact that when you have a change in leadership, that new leadership has to buy into any new direction. So that really kind of set DA back, a period of time until Pierre could get up to speed with DA and Chrissy could present the strategy and get buy-in from management that this is the way to move forward. So I just wanted to Josh makes the point that it really seemed like nothing was going on. Kind of true, but we were kind of preparing to launch some of the things that you're about to see. And so thank you for your patience, but don't misinterpret that as lost interest in DA. That wasn't it at all. It was just we needed to pause before moving ahead with what I think that you're going to find are some really exciting things coming down the pipe.
Excellent. Okay, so the first topic, which we've already touched on this a little bit, right? The new workshop, DA for Teams. And again, training a team versus open enrollment. And yeah, so the open enrollment courses are still there, right? The DASM, SSM, Disciplined Agile Coach, and Value Stream Consultant courses. So there's still an opportunity to deliver those if you're in an organization from sort of a private delivery. Absolutely. I've delivered those courses to teams at customers. We also deliver, obviously, a lot of them from just a public, this open enrollment where, right, you sign up for a course. But the new workshop is only going to be focused on, right, having an entire team go through it. So again, even though we've touched on this, Mark, Scott, Curtis, any other things that come to mind you want to mention?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I'll keep I don't want to dominate the stream here, but
okay,
go ahead, Curtis. Go ahead.
I just want to say that the DA for Teams, what's unique about this workshop is that it actually because it's given to a whole team, it actually works with their particular issues that they're having, and leaves them with an actionable improvement backlog. So it's not one of those things where you take a class and then you wonder what's next once you leave. You know what's next because you've already discussed it with everyone on your team, and you've got an improvement backlog to start with. So you can start doing your continuous improvement journey on that. And this follows the pattern that we established with the DA Value Stream Consultant and DA Coach classes, which also do the very same thing.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to just having your teams go through a workshop like this, right? And then again, as Curtis said, they leave with an improvement backlog, but it's more than that. I mean, they leave with an entire set of assets that they've worked on during that workshop with an expert facilitator, as well as a really deep understanding of how to use the DA knowledge base, right? We're accessing that through the browser, right? To look at solving problems, to be able to identify where and what options you've got for making improvements. And go back to what Scott said earlier, just looking at the trade-offs as a team. And you're doing that in the workshop, but that we're teaching you how to do that for the long term. I mean, this is something you're going to learn and be able to continually use as a team and an organization. And Scott, before maybe you chime in on anything else, looks like we've got Christy Muller. So she is the product owner of DA, kind of, again, a message up here. So we've had it up for a while. Connect with Christy, reach out to her. And yeah, Scott, anything else?
No, I fully agreed with what I heard. So,
all right.
I think we skipped over you, Mark. You were going to say something.
The only point I wanted to make was that, for those of you who've taken DA training, you probably understand very well what the DA value proposition is. For years, Scott and I struggled with really trying to explain to people how valuable the toolkit is. Curtis said it's a godsend to consultants. I'll say it a bit of a different way. If you go to any kind of, and Scott's kind of alluded to every specialty, whether you're a DBA, you're a tester, or an analyst, you have your own ways of working that you taught because you read a book about your specialty. But you have to understand that the authors have different perspectives and they're specialized in this particular specialty, which means that you don't know 10 different ways of estimating. You don't know 10 different ways of modeling or architecting or anything like that. And what Scott and I did, we did the heavy lifting. We pulled all the techniques together into one resource, where now the team doesn't have to memorize all the options, but they can quickly look up solutions to their problems. They might say, user stories aren't working for us, or they're not enough, and we need to supplement with something else. What else could we do to supplement our user stories? And if you don't know what your options are, your retrospectives are going to be a complete waste of time. So your DA for Teams training will open up your eyes to where you can find answers to common problems that people face in your situation. And as Curtis says, the workshops will focus on your problems, not somebody else's generic problems. And you'll leave that workshop with, as Curtis says, an actionable backlog of ways in which you can customize your ways of working for your team. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I just want to chime in on that. So I've shared this story in the past, but I'll do it again. When we were teaching, back before PMI, and we would have a team go through one of our training, every so often you'd get somebody who had been doing Agile for years, or thought they were doing Agile for years, might be a better way of looking at it. And, you get somebody in the back room, I'm an experienced Scrum Master, you're wasting my time, you can't teach me anything. Well, and invariably, like roughly 100% of the time, actually, by the end of the first day, that person who would, basically start out by giving me attitude at the beginning of the workshop, thinking that I care. By the end of the day, they'd be coming back to me, apologize to, wow, I had no idea. Like, not only have you given us solutions for like 2 or 3 problems that we've been struggling with for months, you gave us several options for each one, none of which I ever heard from the Scrum guys. None. And I said, yeah, because we don't limit, DA wasn't limited to Scrum. It wasn't limited to Agile. It's a hybrid. It's misnamed, but it's a hybrid. It really is. And people would invariably be shocked. And we'd get comments along the lines of, I wish I'd stumbled into DA years ago. Like, it would have solved so many problems. It's really, it's too bad we struggled so much with marketing, but, don't get me going.
All right. So one of the biggest assets within DA, right? The DA browser. So for those of you that have seen the browser, I'm going to show you something that I can almost guarantee is brand new, considering it was just released. And for those of you that haven't seen the browser, this is what the browser looks like. Right. So upon coming in to the browser, you're going to be on this process goal. And I'm going to have Scott and then Mark kind of give a little bit of context here. But the thing that I want to show that is brand new, and I'm just thrilled that we're able to show it on this live stream, is we now can translate the browser into other languages. So if I go up here, we've got Google Translate that PMI has just put into this. And we can just kind of pick some different languages, right? So it's Spanish, right? So you can see everything has changed. Now the goal diagrams, because they're or a lot of it is built on graphics, does not change, but everything else you can see here does. And I should not have clicked that. Christy, I know you're watching. What just popped up is a survey. So if you are going out to the browser and that survey pops up, please fill it out. It's great feedback for additional changes and things that can be, again, put on the backlog. And let's see some of the other, if I go to, I don't know, I'll just pick a couple of different languages, right, just to show that, we can go through here and I don't know, I'll go to, finish, right? And then I'll just go back to, again, the original language. So Scott, how about you kind of, and I'll do the clicking around, but talk to us a little bit about the browser and how you guide people in using it.
Yeah, so the basic idea is that it's there to help you find information to solve improvement problems that you're struggling with. So for example, I noticed that somebody had posted something about metrics 10 or 15 minutes ago, asking about GQM and others. So why don't you click on, there you go. So in DA, we didn't prescribe anything. Right, it's not prescriptive. We gave choices. So GQM is one of the choices in I can barely see it. Choose measurement strategy. And so what happened? But there's other choices there, because there's multiple strategies that you can follow for your metrics program. GQM being one of them, and roughly in our opinion was one of the better options. But they're all good. So do the best that you can in the situation that you face. So the idea here is there's enough information about GQM, first of all, to let you know that it exists, and then to pique your interest, let you know what the trade-offs are. And in many cases, there are additional resources, to books and articles about GQM, maybe some videos, who knows. So anyway, so you've got enough information there, so that way you can make a more intelligent decision. So you can break out of what Avery Atkinson calls method jail or framework jail, right? Because the framework guys, they're only going to teach you about what's in their framework, and everything else is for the apostates. So in DA we never took that approach. So there's traditional, and frankly GQM is often considered a reasonably traditional technique, although we would prefer a more lean or agile version of GQM. So you've got choices, and if you click on measure outcomes, so this is one of those cases where there's the two very highly related process goals. So, the process goal measure outcomes. So yeah, there we go. You need to see where I was pointing. But anyways, so there's the issue of like, how do you run your metrics program? But then there's the second issue of, well, what the heck do you measure? And it depends, right? What outcomes do you intend to achieve? Do you want to improve your predictability? Do you want to improve morale? Do you want to improve quality, or software quality, or documentation quality, perhaps? So what are you trying to change? What outcomes are you trying to achieve? And then there's different ways you can measure, to see if you're achieving those outcomes. So it's all about choices. So based on your context, choose the best strategy available to you that you believe will work in your context. So it really is all about helping you to improve. And like, look at, I don't know how many potential metrics are listed there, 50, 60 maybe. You can find them pretty darn quickly if you know where to look. Or you use, there's search as well, but I know where to look. So
yeah. Can I add something? I'd just like to say that what you're seeing here are two of the major unique attributes of DA that you won't find anywhere else. One of them is this taxonomy of goals and decisions. That is your kind of index into the or organizational index into the knowledge base. And the other is when you get down to options for a particular decision you're trying to make, is the trade-offs. That gives you guidance on when you might choose one option over another. And all of this is unique to DA, and it's extremely valuable.
Yeah. And it's, and I'll give you my best practices rant. Best practices are for suckers. There's no such thing as a best practice. Everything is in context. So it's really like what's best or most appropriate for my team in our situation. Because your best practice, that works phenomenally well for you, might be the kiss of death in my situation for my team. And you really need to be able to make decisions, and you need to know your options. You need to be able to make decisions because you hopefully know your context. I don't. Like these method gurus that are telling you best practices, they don't know you. They don't know your context. So any advice about best practices it's just nonsense. And it's observably nonsense. But it's a great marketing pitch. So, good for them, I guess.
And I'd like to add a couple of comments about the browser as well. So what Scott and I found over the years is a lot of people who brush off DA, it's usually because they don't invest enough time to learn what it really is and what it's all about. Yeah. As soon as they see phases as an example, they go, oh, this is a rational unified process, it's waterfall, it's not agile, yada, yada. Nothing could be further from the truth. You don't have to have phases. The reason we have phases is to organize the content so that you can easily find it. Because in some situations, you know what, you're going to have to think about what you're going to do, maybe do a bit of documentation before you actually get the funding to move ahead with it. That's just reality. So where would that happen? At the beginning of the project, and we call that inception. If you don't need to do that, if you're rolling from one release to another, you already have funding and teams in place, you just skip that stuff. It's a reference, it's not a playbook. So the phases are just a place to organize the content so that you can ask yourself, where am I in this initiative? I'm in the construction or implementation phase. Okay, that's probably where I'm going to find some guidance. Or is this something that happens at any point during this initiative? Then that would be in the ongoing goals. So don't confuse the way we've organized the content. It's not meant to be a step-by-step playbook. It's just a way of finding stuff. Because as I think Ricardo said in the comments, yes, there's over 1,800 practices. My goodness, how do you find the guidance that you need for your situation?
Yes. And to be fair to phases, if you are just starting, if this is the first week of your initiative, you darn well better be focused on inception right now. You'd be absolutely foolish not to. And I'm literally involved with 2 or 3 conversations on LinkedIn this week about people thrashing on the Scrum advice around, how do you get started? So it's fuzzy, phases are evil, blah, blah, blah stuff. And it's like, no, dude, you got to spend a little bit of upfront time thinking and getting organized, or you're in serious trouble, which is why you're in serious trouble at the present moment, because you jumped in when you shouldn't have. Yes. So anyways,
you're thrashing, you're spending money, you're spinning wheels, if
do what's right for you in your context.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to finish the comment about Ricardo. I shouldn't answer this because it's related to futures, and Christy will give you the real answer to this question. But I will say, Ricardo, by the way, it's nice to see you. It's been a while. I will say that we understand that it's hard to comprehend 1,800 practices, and maybe if you're in a particular type of project, 1,500 of them don't apply. So it could be a lot of noise. So wouldn't it be great if you could filter the practices for the type of initiative that you're on so that you can see this, so you're not overwhelmed by the tremendous amount of content. I'm just going to say we're aware of that concern, and I'll leave it at that. And I think as Joshua said, we have an announcement at the end of this broadcast about discussion of futures.
Yes. And I will say that we're going to do another live stream. So Curtis and I, and we think we might be able to also get somebody who is actively helping to bring a lot of the new functionality into the browser in one of the upcoming live streams. So for those of you that haven't spent any real time in it, maybe didn't even know it existed, we'll do another session where we go through and we talk about how to find stuff, maybe how in the future we're going to be able to filter, whether it's role-based or approach-based or particular type of issue-based, or I don't know, whatever. So we'll both talk to Christy about, or ask Christy some questions about that, and then we'll also have another session to go into a bit more depth on that. So we do have there are a lot of questions that are in here. So some of these, what I'll say is we'll probably have to defer some of these until a future live stream, or be able to, again, put some context around things as far as, yes, there are some placeholders that are in the browser for some of the value stream management content, or for some of the content that is in the containers of information at the enterprise level. So very well aware of where augmentation of some of those items might lead to in the future. I saw Aldo, I think you would put 1 or 2 comments in there. So we'll try and put some replies once we finish the stream up. But those are also some of the things that we'll be able to talk to Christy about. So can you please post the link in the browser? Yeah, so we do have the link to the browser right underneath this comment, which I will go ahead and show now, right? So just that's the URL. And then there is also a URL that'll take you to a landing page within the DA microsite on PMI.org that'll give you a little more context about the DA for Teams workshop. There's a little more information about it. There's a very simple form that you can just put your name and email address in, and then PMI will give you even more information about it. Curtis, did you want to add in anything?
Well, actually, I did, but
Awesome.
but in some ways it's a little bit off topic. But you know, we've been talking a lot about teams, mostly because of the new workshop that's targeted towards teams. But the trend, but you know, teams work in an environment. You know, they're not isolated. Yeah, Mark mentioned this about training executives and managers, right? And so the environment that they have to work in has a profound effect on their performance. And this is one of the reasons why the up and coming areas of interest in the community is really value streams, you know, end-to-end value streams and their effect upstream and downstream from where the teams are. So, and DA is starting to address this with, you know, we do have some classes that specifically talk about value streams. So I was just going to put in a plug for the DA value stream consultant class.
Yeah, that's a fantastic workshop. I've had an opportunity to deliver that multiple times, and it is extremely impactful. So if you are wanting to understand a little bit more about value stream management, if you're a consultant or within your organization, you've got a role where you would really like to be able to take a look at the value streams that exist in your organization, and then the options to be able to start identifying candidate improvements, that is a wonderful workshop.
Yeah, I wonder if, are we going to talk any more about the B2B side, or is now a good time for me to pop in a comment?
Now is a good time, Mark. So,
you know, if I were to start a business again, I'd probably do exactly what we just did before. I would start a consulting business. You know, there's many people perhaps on the call, you're training providers, and that's your business, and that's great. Keep doing it. But I think there's a real opportunity. Organizations need help, and if I look at our consulting company, pre-PMI, the majority of our revenues are actually consulting revenues, not training. But every consulting engagement started with the training. It was like the bedrock. So I think PMI recognizes this, and they really want to help consulting companies explore that space because it's untapped. most consulting companies go in there with one kind of method. Maybe it's a large scaling framework, and that's all they do. So they're not, I don't want a consultant that's going to come in with a hammer and just start hammering if that's not what I need. I want a consultant that's going to come in and look at my situation and optimize the whole, not optimize individual teams or initiatives. And as Curtis said, look at the entire value stream. So there's a tremendous opportunity here to coach teams, middle management, executives, transform organizations, other than putting band-aids on bad processes, bad systems. So for those of you who are exploring new opportunities, I'd think about that. You can go into an organization and truly be agnostic. And this is another thing that PMI wants to take DA back to its roots, where we were always agnostic. We don't care what kind of method you use. And we recognize that not everything is one flavor. Organizations need real agnostic consultants, trusted advisors. And with DA as your base, positioning yourself for that market would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in on that. Like, so DA has a very coherent story for how to improve, start where you are and then improve from there. So if you're currently doing SAFe, great. DA can definitely provide advice to help you improve upon SAFe and do whatever you need to do, or Scrum or less, or, Scrum at scale, whatever, or traditional, whatever base process or processes you're currently using. And this is something that the framework consultants are not ever going to teach you how to do. Right. So if you've got somebody who's, they're an X consultant or an XYZ, where XYZ is the framework, they're a coach in XYZ, they're not going to tell you how to improve, how to move away from the advice of XYZ, even though that might be the best move you could possibly make, because they might not even have that as a concept, let alone be willing to do that with you. So you really, and like Mark said, consider consulting and coaching in this. And I think a lot of Agile coaches, some of the big problems right now in the Agile coaching space is that it's become a commodity, and frankly, a mediocre commodity, to be blunt about that. And if you really want to up your game and to add real value, you've got to be able to help people improve. And that means you need to know what you're talking about. So the DA toolkit can help you with that.
Well put.
Yeah. And Curtis, how about you share some thoughts as we before we wrap up today?
I think I've gotten all my thoughts out there already. I'm good.
You good? All right. So, lots of questions, right, that we weren't able to answer. And one of the reasons why some of those did get pulled up is, so next week at 12:30, right, a week from today on Wednesday, the next live stream is going to be with Christy Muller, who is the product owner of Disciplined Agile. And so we'll have some of those questions that we'll address next week, plus all the other ones that I am sure to come up. Christy is a wealth of information for the current and the future of DA. So Christy, thank you for participating in our stream
Joshua,
next week. Yes.
I unless things have changed, Christy's actually the product manager more than the product owner.
Yes. Yep. Thanks for the correction, Mark. Yes.
Yeah.
Product manager of DA.
Yeah. She's not just
Sorry, Christy.
tactical, but also strategy. She runs
Yeah.
the whole show.
Around.
Yes. Right. Yeah. The near term and the future.
The value stream manager of DA.
Oh, so it was great once again being all together. Mark, Scott, thanks again for participating today, and Curtis, as always, I look forward to future streams with you as well. For everybody that is live, we'll see you next week. For anybody watching this on replay, post any questions you've got, because we're going to be gathering all those together and seeing which ones we'll be able to make it through next week. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.